back to my channel, TorAthena, where today I'm doing a review of a Comic Con. Yeah, so I've actually only ever done this once before and I kind of thought it wasn't that good a video. But I later on found out at this Comic Con that certain people attended because of my video. Certain people made decisions whether to get a table or not at my video. And certain guests, like the Power Rangers, part of the reason they signed, not only because they want to be in Britain, was because of my video. So really, even though it was like probably 0.5% because of me, the Power Rangers were there, it is really all to do with me. So you're welcome. But yeah, the bottom line is people seem to actually care about the video, and therefore I think I'm going to do this more often. Review Comic Cons, because I go to a lot of them and I'm an opinionated person. So let's begin. Well, this is kind of an interesting video because I'm comparing the evolution of this Comic Con as well as just reviewing it in its own right. Did it fix the things that were wrong last year? Did it improve the things it was good at last year? Who knows? Wait, well, except me, I do, or anyone who attended. This is why I don't do these videos. Well, let's start with the location. The location was still in Liverpool, which I like because that's where I'm from. It was in the exhibition centre, which I also like because it's a good layout, it's nice and bright for photography, it's huge, there's a lot of space to play with, and it's very easy to get to. Plus, it's always good for a Comic Con to stay at the same location because you can start planning around that when they move, like unfortunately LSCC, London Super Comic Con. When it moved, it was kind of like the final nail in the coffin, which is heartbreaking because that was one of my favourite Comic Cons. So next, let's talk about the layout. They hadn't changed much from the layout from last year, which is a good and potentially bad thing. There is a lot of space to sit around, to breathe, to stand. It's good. That part is good. The guests are usually all in one space with really good lines, which is usually good because some cons you can go to, the lines are too short, it's very cramped, they're too close to other things. That part is a very good layout and they didn't really need to improve on that. They kept what was working and then just repeated it this year. One of the biggest problems last year from people who went seemed to be that the store was too cramped. As you can see from the video that I filmed, that it is a very huge room and only about 25, maybe 30% of it is used up for the stalls, which is also fine because they had a lot of other stuff to put in. But last year, the stalls were too close together, and especially on Saturday, it was too cramped, it was really busy, you couldn't see anything. I know a lot of sellers personally who didn't actually sell a lot on Saturday because it was too cramped for people to stop and actually look. So you may be able to say, oh, tens of thousands of people attended, but that's not going to help your sales in any way because there was too many people around a cramped space. This year, I'm going to be honest, it didn't look like they made it any wider. However, I did walk through on the Saturday, and although it was too cramped for me personally, that's an introvert who hates people, I'm not really much to go on. No one else seemed to complain. I asked on Instagram if anyone had any highs or lows, and no one so far has mentioned the stalls. Either there were less people who attended this year, as I actually can't remember the figures, or the space actually just was wider and we can't tell the difference. Either way, it didn't actually seem to be a problem this year. So the location's right and the layout's working, so what did the con actually offer? Well, first off, it had a lot of guests. If you were a Power Ranger fan, it was actually a pretty big deal that it had 14 actors from different Power Ranger TV shows. I personally am not a big Power Ranger fan, but I can appreciate that that's a huge thing. They rightly so had their own little table, so if you're interested in Power Rangers, you find that table and you can just work your way through the guests. They also had Dean Cain, you know, the Superman from the Saturday morning TV show that I grew up on. He was probably my biggest fangirl moment of the weekend because he was just my Superman. I loved him, and Lois Lane was there as well, but I can't remember her name. But they were both there, and I think for my childhood, that was a pretty epic guest. There were other guests as well, and if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to appreciate the fact that Sting was there, who actually did have the longest queue. And even though the allocated lines were very long, his line was still too short. It just kept going. This con also offers something that a lot don't, and I really appreciate, were like prop vehicles, spaceships, cars. I don't remember seeing as many as I did this year. Last year they had like the TARDIS, the Scooby-Doo van, but in replace to that, one of the tables was the Power Rangers table replacing a Scooby-Doo van. So I actually do think that the quality of the con actually improved this year if you look at it that way, but there were still some prop vehicles, some cosplay props, stuff like that, and I like that. They're fun to look at. They offered panels, and I actually have to admit to this con, it was one of the best audio I've heard at cons, because this is a very difficult thing to master. You are about to do a panel in a massive room where there's a lot of echo. It is very, very easy to get that wrong and people can't hear what you're talking about. I've been to some cons, I've guested at some cons working with the stage, knowing that people can't hear you, and it's really awkward and really infuriating for the guest and for anyone working with the stage. The sound quality was brilliant. I never had a problem hearing who was on the stage. The only gripe I would say is there were potentially not enough chairs, because there were some panels, especially with the baddies, not the baddies, like the school bullies in Power Rangers. They were one of the biggest crowds, and honestly, about only a third of the people watching the panel had seats. On a side note, I was actually filming some behind the scenes stuff for the Power Rangers, not for my stuff, but for theirs. So I had to attend a lot more panels than I usually would. I'm not a panel person, and I actually really enjoyed them, and it made me realize there is a lot more to cons and the content involved. And it made me really appreciate the fact that cons that do panels like this are a good thing. They also offer an after party, and I am all for after parties. It's not the most common thing, but it's also not the most unique thing either. Other cons do after parties. I've never personally been to this after party, but from the footage I've seen, it looks really fun. Last year, the only gripe I heard was that the DJ was a little bit all over the place with the music. I haven't heard any feedback necessarily about the music, but the event was in Camden Furnace, and that is a great location to have any party. Downside to this con, and it is a pretty big thing for me, the stalls this year were not as good as the stalls last year. I know that the prices were half price last year because it was an introductory fee to the con, which is fair enough, but because they were cheaper, it allowed a lot more independent and creative people to be able to sell at the tables, and that's one of my personal favorite things to do. And it also created a lot more variety instead of the Scooby-Doo backdrop that you see of props, body pillows, props, t-shirts, body pillows that you see at every stall. I didn't see one independent, I'm not saying there wasn't, but I don't remember seeing one independent creative person. One comic book stall, which it boggles my mind when someone calls it a Comic Con and there's next to nothing to do with comics. It stresses me out. I wish so much that every con would adopt the mentality that MCM have and have a comic village where they do subsidized or cheaper tables to help creative people sell their own work. Not copyrighted. If they want to sell copyright stuff, they have to pay full price, but their own work, and it helps the comic industry, it helps independence, and we all know that I love and push for independence in any form of business. It gives more variety to the attendees that go. I just think it could never be a bad thing. I don't know if it was because there were less people cosplaying, so their cosplay stood out more, or there was genuinely phenomenal cosplay, but I saw some of the greatest cosplay at Liverpool Comic Con. The cosplay quality was at a high 11. Some of the images you see here are from Dan Burgess Photography, and he was also there as press, and he has captured some of my favorite cosplays and some that I didn't even see that are amazing. My personal favorite was just seeing this Braveheart group of warriors walking around listening to bagpipe music, and as I'm standing there in awe, and I very rarely get in awe of cosplay these days. I've been doing this for too many years. I am kind of desensitized to that oh my gosh reaction. Like, I can appreciate a cosplay, but I don't really react in that way. And I remember just standing there a little starstruck, and he looked at me and he growled, and I was like, oh my god, I loved it. And then a Braveheart stormtrooper walked past. That was just brilliant. I loved it, and that was personally my favorite cosplay, but there was some incredible. There was a guy from 300 there, and I actually got too shy to go up and ask if I could film him or take a picture. Like, he was too much. I think it was Jared Butler. Jared Butler was at Liverpool Comic Con, so there we go. Can that be my title? Is that too clickbaity? So overall, except for one or two little pointers that I would obviously nudge in a slightly different direction or a slightly upgraded direction, the con was overall, I would say, a massive success. I did put out on Instagram the highs and lows, like asking people the highs and lows of the con, and honestly, except for the fact that it was possibly too quiet on Friday and too busy on Saturday, that is the only downside to the con, where that isn't really the convention's fault. But I would say that there were no guests on Friday, which probably meant that people didn't go on Friday. Oh, that that is actually a really good point. So I got a press pass and I got an email saying you can't do interviews on Saturday and Sunday, which totally made sense because of course it would be too busy to do it on a Saturday and Sunday. On Friday, there were 0 guests. Okay, 2 guests. There were 2 guests. There was Jeff, East, and another guest. But like all the big guests weren't there. Power Rangers appeared for 10 minutes to do a press announcement on the stage and then left. Dean Cain was on the couch doing an interview for the Comic Con and then left. It was just, I felt that was a bit weird. I get that certain guests can only do certain days, but in all fairness, when you went on Friday, it did look empty. And I would say that that's not the con's fault, except I would definitely, on their part, try to make sure there is enough going on guest-wise. That could have been the only thing they did to make sure guests went on Friday as well. But I also don't think it was available on Friday last year. I could be wrong, but that's how I remember it. So maybe it's that it's so new. And if they keep it up with the 3-day thing, obviously more and more people are going to book time off. More guests will be prepared to come on Friday because it'll be busier and it'll just be a growing thing. So yeah, like I said, overall, it was a success. Except for one area I have yet to discuss, and it's the staff. So last year at Comic Con, I had one of the most infuriating situations with a staff member / volunteer that I'd ever had at a Comic Con. And I remember including it in the review because I was so livid at the lack of universal training among the staff. And last year, it was one of my biggest problems. The stall placement and the staff were my 2 main problems at this con. I had never seen, I don't want to say lack of training because they obviously had some training, but I'd never had it so difficult with staff at a Comic Con, especially having press. Usually I do admit there is a certain relationship you have with staff, and it is a much easier relationship with staff when you are press because 1, they know you are here to represent the con and they want it to be in a good light. 2, there are certain things you get by being press. Usually you get to queue jump, you usually get to do this, and you have a nice closer relationship with the staff because you have to communicate with them by being press. You have to know what's going on, you have to know where to get certain things, and you develop a nice relationship between harmonious, well-trained staff. And I didn't feel like that happened last year, but I placed that down to it being the first year. This year, this year was a very mixed reaction experience with the staff. I dealt with about 5 staff closely. 2 of them were a bloody delight, an absolute flipping wonder to work with. However, you could argue that's because they knew me, like personally. One was a customer in my shop and one was a DF friend who was also a press that I've worked with for a while. They were lovely, they were helpful, they were wonderful. The other 3 I did not know and had difficulties with. One will haunt me to this very day, and I think he's become my nemesis. I'm gonna go in order of irritability. So the first one I dealt with was when getting my press pass. So I go up to the security, who actually, side note, security were brilliant in this Comic Con. I can't remember how they were last year or if I commented on it, but the security itself, checking bags, keeping the queues good, for me personally I saw was fine, not a problem. But when I went up to security, I said, I've got a press pass to collect. Where's the press pass? Hoping that it improved from last year where 3 different journalists had 3 different bands because there was no press pass allocated. He goes, go to this woman over there. So I go to this woman over there. I say, I am picking up a press pass. She quite coldly says to me, do you have an email? And I go, yes, I do. And I handed this 1 sheet of paper that says, congratulations, Liverpool Comic Con, you have 2 press passes. You need ID. That's it. That's it. She scans it for what felt like 5 to 10 minutes, almost like checking a £20 note, very obviously not believing me that it's a genuine email, and then gives me the press passes. Now, don't get me wrong. She might be tired. She might have just dealt with a lot of it. I'm not saying she was particularly rude, but it was not a warm reaction. It wasn't a warm greeting from her. And she gives me this red band. Doesn't say press on it, but she seemed to know what to give me, and I was happy with that. I do later find out that 2 other press just got a sparkly gold wristband, which I thought was really pretty and special. Turns out that was just the weekend bands. So unfortunately, it does seem to be that staff training press pass band issue is still an issue, but I got the correct one this time. My second interaction was when I was filming for the Power Rangers. I got a text off the talent agency saying, can you meet me at the photo booth station and film some behind the scenes stuff ASAP. So I run over to it and I don't know where anyone is, and I try and look for some staff to say I need to be behind the curtain, and all of a sudden I see Aaron, the talent agency / manager, and says, oh, she's with me, let her in, she's with me. So one of the staff let me through straight away, and there's another woman at the curtain. So I go around all the queues and I come up smiling, thinking that she'd seen it, and she goes, just wait there, love, just wait there. She wasn't rude in any way, and she was like, just wait there. And I went, oh no, I'm with Aaron, I've got to film this. And she went, just wait until he gets back. And I went, he's just said it that I need to be there ASAP, because I was like stressing out because I didn't really know what was about to happen, that I had to be there ASAP to film. And she went, yeah, but just wait for Aaron. And I was like, okay, you've just seen it, but okay, I'll wait. I get it, she was polite. She didn't believe a word I said, but then again, I assume a lot of people could possibly try to lie. I had to wait for Aaron. Aaron was very, very stressed trying to find all the Power Rangers for this group photo shoot that he wanted to film, but he also had to find the Power Rangers to film this group photo shoot. So I had to message him and be like, they're not letting me in until you get back. And he was like, okay. And then he ran back and he was like, she's with me, she needs to film this. And she was like, it's up to you if you want that. And he went, yes, I do. And she went, okay, it's up to you. And he went, so can she come behind and film? And she went, it's up to you. And I'm sure that happened a couple of times. She just kept saying, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. Almost like with a very on your head be it kind of air. And I don't know what would have been on his head. I don't know what it. But eventually she did let me in, and I think the moment she realised we wasn't trying to con her out of anything, she did warm up and she was actually really nice to us. But it was a very weird way. It was weird. And I do get, before anyone says, that you're not allowed to film behind there as an attendee, but he was the people in control making money out of the people filming that, like being photographed. So he is allowed to say, I want that footage. You know, if he wasn't running around like a madman, he would have been the one filming it. As the talent agency manager, he can. So it was just, it was a lot of miscommunication, and it could have been a lot smoother, but it was sorted. It was sorted in the end, and it was just a little bit like, okay, I have no idea what this edit is gonna look like. I just told the story of the third person that annoyed me at a con, and it turned out into a 20-minute rambling, and I cannot include that in this review. It's not professional, it's still very emotional for me, but what I will simply say is, in this video, is I was filming a banner for the Power Rangers. It was an inanimate object. I'd already filmed the table multiple times for the talent agency as they asked me to, and I'd already filmed the Power Rangers at that table. When I got there, I was just filming the banners as B-roll for the Power Rangers, and I'd already informed the said Power Rangers at the table, hey, I'm just going to be filming your banner, your backdrop. And one of them actually replied, oh, you babe. So they were fine with it. I'm also wearing a red band, which is either staff, press, or even a guest. And this man comes up to me as I'm filming it and goes from behind the table and goes, whoa, who are you? And at first I just complied, and I was like, oh, I'm just, you know, I'm filming for Aaron. And he went, okay. Like he was not satisfied with my answer. He just didn't get out of the way. He carried on standing there in front of the banner and didn't let me do my work. And it really annoyed me. The more I think about it, the more it annoys me, hence why I've just rambled for 20 minutes, and that's probably going to be its own story time now. But the thing that annoyed me about that was, I could have been a guest. I could have been a very overweight and out of a job celebrity, and he spoke to me like, I could have been a staff member filming stuff for Andy or for the con or for anything, and he just spoke to me like, or I could have been press, which I was, documenting the con on their behalf to put into the public, which is free advertisement in exchange for a free ticket. It's fair, but it is a review. I'm there as press to show what's going on at the con. I don't have to speak highly of it if it's not a good con. So I don't know why, when I'm wearing a very visible red band when I got my camera up, he spoke to me like that. I don't know why he just got in front of my shot, was like, whoa, who are you? When I'm filming an inanimate object, and spoke to me like, if there was a genuine thing where the rules were, don't let anyone under any circumstance film the banners, even press, which I wouldn't even understand why that would be a thing. There's ways to do that. They'd be like, oh, sorry, you can't film that. Not just get in front of my shot, say, who are you? When I give them an incredibly valid answer, they stay there and stop me from working. I'm so angry at that. There was 1 or 2 management people working with celebrities and guests who actually did say to me that this wasn't a very well trained convention. Like, the staff did not all know the same thing. The training is not up to par that some other cons are, and I have to agree, that is the only thing that hasn't really changed. And it's a shame, because 2 staff members were wonderful, and I believe they would have been wonderful to anyone, but I also have to be transparent and say, well, they knew me. So it is hard to say, oh, the staff were really wonderful. The 3 staff that didn't were doing their job, but some were not warm, some had very unusual responses, and one was just outright rude. And I'm still upset. I'm not upset, but I'm angry at it. Like, I'm angry at it because I just don't understand why he would react like that. Overall though, bar that one incredibly frustrating moment, the con was actually really good. Would I go again? Yes. Is the con worth the money? I can't say, because full transparency, I don't pay for my ticket. That's what a press pass is. It's a free ticket, which I have to then report back on the con. And I also think that a con is only worth the money that you get out of it, and I know a lot of people do. What would I like to see from it in the future? I would like its own comic village. I'd like every con to do that. I would like the staff to be better trained, and I would like a recognizable badge. Now, I actually think that this was, if you are press pass guest or staff, that's a strong wristband to have, yet I still did not get treated with the authority I felt I should have been treated sometimes. I'm not saying I want people kissing my feet, but I felt totally either not believed, dismissed, and invalidated sometimes with the who are you? Like, I know I'm a nobody, but I'm not wearing just an attendee wristband. I'm wearing a wristband that meant something to the con, and therefore be polite. Be polite to anyone anyway, but So they're my 3 main things that I would say could improve the con for next year. And things that I would change, the same, is definitely the panels. The panels are really, like, the way the panels are done. The layout, once again, I'd like to see the stores expand, but I think the layout, once again, overall is good. The exhibition is great. The after party is spot on. And yeah, overall, it was a good con. I hope I helped you in some way. I realise most people won't be watching this until next year, so comment below if you decide to go in 2020. Thank you so much for watching this, and I apologise for the very weird inevitable edit that I realise I'm going to do in between that rant story. And stay tuned for the story time about that guy and its full dramatic reenactment that I did. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps out the channel. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you not tomorrow but the next. Bye!